The line is backed up, the shift is almost over, and a supervisor taps their wrist. An operator, feeling the squeeze, skips a routine sanitization wipe just to keep the product moving. Meanwhile, sitting in the manager's office, the facility's official audit binder shows a spotless record of 100% compliance. This disconnect highlights a harsh reality in food manufacturing. A facility's true safety culture isn't found in a flawless logbook. It is measured entirely by what happens when doing the right thing becomes operationally inconvenient. When policies clash with strict quotas, friction points create shadow behaviors. An operator might pre-fill a shift's worth of temperature checks in the break room, or intentionally overlook potential cross-contamination on a cutting board to avoid stopping the line. It is tempting to blame the frontline workers for these shortcuts, but these actions rarely happen in a vacuum. When management constantly demands higher throughput without adding time or resources, they send a very clear, unspoken signal to the floor. Speed is prioritized over safety. That tension makes production work pressure the ultimate diagnostic stress test. It strips away the theoretical compliance you see on paper and reveals the actual structural strength of your operations. To understand how this breakdown happens, we can look at the Global Food Safety Initiative, or GSSI. Their definition of food safety culture points directly to the deeply rooted beliefs, behaviors, values, and assumptions shared by all employees. The GSSI maps this out as a multi-tiered wheel. This graphic shows an outer ring made up of organizational foundations. This is where company values, vision, and leadership live, and they dictate whether employees actually feel committed and empowered. Those outer foundations act as the boundary condition for the inner ring, the manifested cultural essentials. These are the day-to-day actions on the floor, like an employee's situational awareness of hazards and risks. If staff are only following instructions without understanding the specific hazards involved, their compliance is fragile. The second a production quota is threatened, those blind procedures are the first things abandoned to catch up. When managers consistently look the other way to hit an output target, the facility develops what organizational psychologists call normalized deviance. Rule-breaking stops being an exception and becomes the accepted baseline for how work actually gets done. Once that outer foundational ring of leadership cracks under the weight of production pressure, the inner cultural essentials lose their anchor. The entire system inevitably collapses, making a critical safety failure a matter of when, not if. Diagnosing this in your own operation requires setting aside your official training logs. Instead, you need to observe the floor during your busiest, highest stress peak hours. Ask yourself what specifically happens when a mandatory protocol directly conflicts with hitting the daily yield target. Does the line stop, or do the supervisors push through? If a junior operator spots a potential contamination issue, do they have the actual recognized authority to hit the kill switch without fear of retaliation or blame from their manager? And look at the executives. When corporate leadership walks the facility, do they strictly wear the required hairnets and PPE, or do they treat themselves as exempt from the rules they enforce on the floor workers? The honest answers to these specific scenarios are the only accurate metrics of your food safety culture. The data in your audit binder is just documentation, but the hard choices made under intense stress are the actual reality. Fixing a broken culture means leaders must proactively design systems where the safe choice is also the most efficient choice, especially when rush hour hits. To start, you have to connect protocols directly to biological realities. This chart visualizes exponential bacterial growth when food enters the 41 to 135 degree danger zone. When an operator sees the rapid biological consequence of skipping a single temperature check, they understand the why behind the rule, rather than just memorizing a requirement. That education has to extend beyond isolated learning modules. Coaching in context means taking those lessons onto the floor and walking through real-world scenarios right where the hazards actually exist. At the same time, leadership has to change how they handle bad news. Instead of punishing the messenger who points out a flaw, managers need to actively celebrate near-miss incident reports, proving that open communication is actually valued. Safety also demands aligned resources. You cannot realistically expect flawless execution if you consistently understaff the Friday match shift or ignore maintenance requests for broken cooling equipment. When an employee does make the right call, especially when that decision temporarily stops the line and delays production, They need to be publicly praised for it, not quietly reprimanded for the downtime. A resilient food safety culture is forged entirely by the difficult, expensive choices a business makes when the pressure is on. Let us know in the comments, what wins in your facility when safety and production collide?